In 2002, there was a massive anti-Muslim riot in India in which over 1,000 people were killed. Most of those who were killed were Muslim. And in this very horrific riot, a woman was gang raped, and on top of that, she watched as 14 members of her family were butchered by a Hindu mob. 11 men took part in this crime. These were the rapists and the murderers, and they were just released from prison. And they were welcomed by a Hindu nationalist mob with sweets. What a wonderful, wonderful culture. Yet another reason as to why I really don't care for India, and I really don't care for their wonderful, exotic, magical, sublime, transcendent Hindu culture. Hindu nationalism is very popular in India, and this is quite apparent given the fact that Narendra Modi and his BJ party are very popular. They have a huge, huge following. It's a major movement in India. This is quite obvious. And I really don't care for the Hindu culture. I really don't care for Hinduism. I don't really give a damn. You know, all these people are like, oh my God, India is such an amazing country. It's so beautiful. And the food, oh my goodness, the food. And the people who talk this way are those who really don't have any spices in their home cooking anyway. So when they go to India and they just taste a little bit of turmeric, they're like, oh my God, where has this been my entire life? I really don't care for Hindu culture. Every time I get a scam call, every single time, it's an Indian guy's voice that I'm hearing. Every single time. I'm not hearing some guy from Saudi Arabia. I'm hearing some guy who's like, hello, sir, do you have your Medicare cards A and B? Do you have your Medicare insurance? Are you insured by... You can be insured by our provider, sir. Hello, sir, we are with the IRS. You owe us $500,000 in taxes. If you do not pay us the money, we will have the police coming to your door immediately. Pretty much all the scam callers are from India or Pakistan. I really don't care for this culture. Oh, but that is not Indian culture. That is Pakistani culture. Yes, Pakistan was India until 1947, so spare me the garbage. But this also gets me thinking, because why were these criminals released? Because they were all serving life sentences. I mean, they murdered people. Of course they're going to be serving life sentences. But they were released. Why were they released? Because they're good Hindus. They're good Hindus. They're wonderful. Heroes. And what's so scary is that they are people in America who support this type of thing. And they're not even Hindus. These are Americans, white Americans, conservative Americans that you would think are just good patriots, but they would support this type of barbaric, savage movement. For example, Robert Spencer, who was a big figure in the counter-jihad, anti-Islam movement back in the day, although he's nowhere near as relevant as he once was. Years and years ago, I remember reading about how Robert Spencer worked with a Hindu nationalist who was in the United States being active in advancing the cause of the BJP, which is the political party of Narendra Modi. And he had all of these anti-Islam activists who were always praising the Hindu nationalist movement, always ever so willing to work with Hindu nationalists. Steve Bannon does not mind working with Hindu nationalists. In fact, he praises the BJP. He praises Narendra Modi because he's a good patriot. And we have to support patriots all over the world, even if they consist of bloodthirsty murderers. I remember years ago watching a video of a Hindu nationalist hacking a man to death with an axe because that man was a Muslim. Where's the humanity? There's no room for humanity in these pharisaical, ultra-nationalistic movements. It's all just legalism. It's all just the mechanical written law that you must revere. In this case, it's the written law of the nation. It's the written law of the cult of the nation, or the cult of personality that revolves around whichever political leader that you choose to be a sycophant towards. These Hindus were good Hindus, so therefore they shouldn't be in prison. They don't really deserve justice for murdering a family and gang raping a woman. And this brings to mind another thing that I've been thinking about for a long time, and that is the power of religion. Religion is extremely dangerous. It is. Religion is very, very dangerous when it is in the wrong hands. And sadly, religion tends to be in the wrong hands. People who get so caught up in their biases that they lose all of their humanity. They may be critical of Judaism to the point where they become Nazis and they want to kill Jews. People can become so caught up in being anti-Islam to the point where there's no room for humanity for Muslim people. And they wouldn't mind if some mob went out and butchered a bunch of Muslims, and they wouldn't care. Case in point, the Maronites in Lebanon, the Phalangists, the Kataib, the people who say, we are proud Phoenicians. Look at what they did in 1982, September of 1982, walking around for 3 days, butchering every Palestinian that they could find, raping women, murdering pregnant women. One of the most horrific things that you can ever read about are the massacres that occurred in 1982 in the Palestinian refugee camps, specifically of Sabra and Shatila, but there were other ones as well. There was Tel al-Zatar. There was also Karantina. The indiscriminate butchering of people because they are a member of a particular race or religious group. I can't stand... I mean... at one point in time, I would say, we need to have a militant movement. Like, we need to have an aggressive stance. Now, I would never support massacring people, but if I saw some kind of patriotic movement, I would think, these must be good people. But now I always second guess those types of movements. Not really second guess. I always question those types of movements. And I always think to myself, do you guys have an agenda that is absent of humanity and compassion? I mean, do you guys want to kill people? And many times, that's what these types of movements are. It's quite sad. Weeks ago, I watched a film. It was an Estonian movie. It's called... Truth and Justice, I believe is the name of this film. It was considered to be the greatest movie ever made in Estonian cinematic history. And it's like, how many movies have ever come out of Estonia? I don't know. But in this film, it shows this guy who's a newlywed and he buys this land and he's super excited and he's very naive. He's very innocent. But he's a good guy. He's not an evil person. And he gets continuously taken advantage of by his neighbor who's suing him and who's always messing with him and messing with his land and is just really a complete asshole. And the neighbor is so bad and so ruthless that this once innocent man begins to adapt to this type of behavior, and he begins to adapt to this sort of cutthroat environment, and he becomes more ruthless than his neighbor, to the point where he begins to abuse his own family. And throughout the film, it makes it quite clear that this man has made it a habit to read his Bible almost every single night. But yet, he becomes this cold-blooded, heartless person. So there's a character in the film that poses the question, how can a man who reads his Bible every single night become so heartless? How could you read the Bible every single night and yet become an abusive monster? And this character in the film says, I have concluded that it's because he read his Bible every night. And you think, well, that sounds sacrilegious. Well, the character in the film begins to clarify things. He says, now, don't get me wrong. The Bible is the Word of God and the Bible is true. The problem, though, is that certain people will read their Bible, and because the Bible is the Word of God, they think that they understand the Bible, and therefore they believe that they have the Word of God, and thus they are not obligated to listen to the word of man. So when other humans approach them and say, hey, you're doing something evil, hey, you're doing something wrong, this particular person believes that because he has the word of God, he is not obligated to listen to the pleas of humans. He is not obligated to listen to the word of man. Very interesting observation. And it's an observation that may appear as sacrilegious, but it's not. Because how many times have we met people in our lives? If you are a person who goes to church every Sunday, and you go to the Wednesday night Bible study, Thursday night Bible study, I am 100% certain that you have met at least one person who was no damn good, who was a rotten individual, but believed that they were righteous because they read their Bible and they went to church and they had the word of God. And they were not obligated to listen to you or to listen to their friends or listen to their neighbors or listen to their family members because, well, what do they know? They're just humans. I have the word of God in heaven. And this is why religion is so dangerous. Religion unto itself, Christianity unto itself is not bad, obviously not. But Christianity in the hands of humans can become weaponized and can be used for cult manipulation. Recently, I watched another movie. It's called Resurrection. Now, if you're squeamish and you don't like watching films that are rated R, don't watch this movie. But at least listen to some of my commentary so that you can get some interesting observation. In this movie, there is a woman who is being manipulated by I'll just say her husband, right? Even though they're technically not married, just for convenience sake, I'll say her husband. She is being manipulated by her husband, and her husband is a physicist or some sort of scientist, but he's also a new age guru. And he makes his wife do certain yogic poses for hours as basically a form of brainwashing. And he gives her drugs and makes her do these yogic poses. And each pose she has to do for hours. And basically, he's like a yogic guru cult leader. And those do exist. I mean, we have many examples of this. We had Osho. We had that guy in Japan who put that gas bomb in the subway. We've had a bunch of different people. Yuval Harari, that guy's basically a new age guru cult leader. There's a bunch of them. And he begins to manipulate his wife and tries to get her in complete control, under his complete control. And people use religion for this purpose. They use religion to control people, because if you are the medium between God and man, and you are the means by which man can reach salvation, then you are going to have a lot of power over people, because who wants to go to hell? So this is why religion can become so dangerous, and it can become a very powerful weapon. And so you see in this example in India, people, entire mobs, an entire population of people supporting rapists and murderers. Why? Because, well, those rapists and murderers are good Hindus. You see nationalists supporting paramilitary groups that rape and murder. Why? Because those people are good nationalists. Case in point, the Phalangists in Lebanon. So that's my thoughts for this. I don't really care for the Hindu nationalist culture. I think it's all rotten to the core. I think it's sickening. But yet, you're going to have all these assholes who will pop up and be like, no, you are absolutely wrong. The Hindu movement is very, very good. We must protect the Indian nation against these evil Muslims and Christians. You want to know what the Hindu cult is? Just watch Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. That's what it is. There's that scene where the guy is giving blood to Indiana Jones, and he's like, well, what does he say? First the Muslim god will fall, and then the Jewish god, and then the Christian god, and then the Hindu religion will rule the world, or something like that. The thuggies will rule over the entire world. Anyway, yeah, you guys just heard some theology. God bless.